Okay. Sorry, I said let us come to this page. I was on the other page a couple of seconds or minutes ago, but I think we have to be here because of possibility of wider coverage. Okay, I want to say good afternoon, good morning, and of course good evening to some of us. Basically, the part of the world we are following. I am Mazi Chika Austin, and of course, I did mention earlier that we'll definitely come to discuss, developments that are ongoing in West Africa, in Sahel, and this is why we are here. This is what we are here to discuss. I believe I'm coming out loud and clear. I believe the visual, the audio, they are all coming out very okay. You have to let us understand how audible and how visual we are by making use of the comment section. So we have a very lengthy discussion to make today, owing to the fact that so many things have been happening, a lot have been going on, and it's important we keep ourselves updated. It is important we, keep ourselves spontaneously informed about events around us, about things happening, around us. Because it's been said that information is power. When people are informed, there is every potency that certain mistakes, certain errors will be averted. That is just what it is. So we as a people, we own ourselves that very responsibility, that very duty to keep updating ourselves, keep informing ourselves of events happening around us. So it's very, very important you share this program, because this program is going to be explosive. It's going to be explosive. And of course, it's also going to be helpful to us because for decades we've been quite behind of historical consciousness, political consciousness. As a people, I'm talking about the Biafran population, who have been, unlike some other African population, we have not really been acquainted to these very facts because we felt they are not necessary. But as time keeps evolving, we keep on understanding the fact that either we embrace history, which is, which is embedded in fact or on fact, or we fizzle out as a people. So we are talking about development in Sahel. We are talking about, to an extent, West African history. And I believe it's important to understand these things. There is absolutely no people, there is absolutely no race that have traveled widely like our own race. But there is a very strong should I say, antithesis, disagreeing fronts. Because by all definitions, by all standards, the most traveled people supposed to have the most sophisticated knowledge of interest protection. That is what it's supposed to be. When people are known to have been wide travelers, I'm talking about a nation, a race, one of those things, that experience ought to embed in them is the ability to swim in a complex situation, no matter how complexity the situation is, and narrow it towards their own interest preservation and protection. I will give instance with a race like the Jews. The Jews began, they are one of the races, apart from the Igbo race, that started early voyage. I'm talking about early migrations, early travelings. And today, they are properly utilizing that age-long experience into preservation and protection of their interest. Why were they able to indigenalize that experience? The answer is not far-fetched. It's owing to the fact that wherever they go, wherever they find themselves, they have built the consciousness that the global system is a competitive system and thus must be grabbed for the advantage of the Jewish nation. It's a consciousness. We're talking about issue of, being conscious, how conscious one is, how conscious one is towards objective he's pursuing. That is what we're talking about. But in our own case, it is not really the same, because we don't have that consciousness. In fact, as a matter of fact, if not the coming of the struggle for Biafra, we have no national consciousness. It might really be, a difficult one for us to accept because of our soft pride and arrogancy. But the truth remains, we don't have a national consciousness, except the time we started talking for agitation for the Biafran state. Prior to this time, we don't have a national consciousness. Even the national consciousness that the Biafran struggle is molding in our lives, we are still finding it difficult. We are divided on the lines of, is it worth preserving or not? Some of us are still kicking against that, what's supposed to be national identity, national political thought, national economic formulation. I don't really want to do, make this program to be a hype intellectual discourse. But what we are trying to say, I want us to really discuss as a people. I want us, we want us to talk. I want us to have a kind of tangible mental discussion. Because what we are talking about, you see, we are being faced with, a very hostile region I mean, where we find ourselves situated, I'm talking about the sub-Saharan region, the West African region, where we find ourselves, in, we are facing a hostile situation. And certain competitors within this region have also identified us as a people they need to work upon if they should have their ways. I mean, our competitors have also identified us that there is every necessity that they need to galvanize their resources to work on us psychologically, politically, and otherwise, if they should have their way. This is a political thinking from certain quarters who believe that if they should have their way, their project should be, how do we weaken this set of people? Because they understand on a fair, competitive situation, they have nothing to be measurable to us. So the best thing you do in most cases is to destroy your opponent that seems to have a comparative advantage than you. And this is exactly what the conspiracies are all about. So we want to talk about West Africa, we want to talk about Sahel. I used to say it, an average one of us have a disdain, we have a hatred to history. An average one of us. It just, what the struggle, one of amazing thing the struggle have done for us is, we have an ability to start informing ourselves on a very speed trajectory. That is what one of the amazing things the struggle for Biafra has done. Because without it, I don't think I'll have this platform to talk to us. I won't have this platform to also, make a research and have a targeted audience to disseminate what I think I've found in my research too. So it's an amazing thing, and that's why our opponents are not comfortable with the emergence of the struggle, because they know that if the struggle is being carefully maximized, it's going to emancipate these people, not just on the geographical emancipation, which is the end point of the agitation, but it's going to emancipate them mentally. Because when people are conscious, when people have a mental emancipation, the geographical emancipation becomes a walkover. Very, very important to understand it. When people are emancipated mentally, when people are being directed on a nationalistic and nostalgic way of thinking, take note of these two words, nationalistic and nostalgic way of thinking. When people are impregnated with those mental consciousness, the quest for geographical emancipation, which is external sovereignty, becomes an easy walkover. And this is one of those things this struggle is doing. And this is one of those challenges our opponents are facing. Because every other platform you're talking about is a divisive platform. Whether you're talking about political line, APC, PDP will divide us more. Whether you're talking about, certain ideological lines, they are instrument of divisions. The only thing we have organically built for ourselves is this very movement, which is an umbrella of unification of all of us. It is organic because it is not established by Ohanese. It's not established by the government. It's not established by the mainstream political actors. It is organically because the people choose to evolve for themselves an independent movement devoid of political big waist control. Take note of that. You have to understand that very well. So, in Africa today, in West Africa today, this movement have taken it upon herself to start righting the wrongs, to start fitting in those areas we neglected, those areas we felt we are not worth paying attention to. And this is one of those things the movement takes as a responsibility to do. You see, our fathers, with high respect to whatever they stood for and whatever they fought for, but our fathers, we are more of, internal players than external players. I'm going to explain something for us. That's why I said you have to share this program. Get a lot of people to sit down. We are going to talk heart to heart. You see, there are certain things our fathers did. There are certain steps they took that we are not worth taking. Now, the reason why we should review all these steps, the reason why we should make objective dissection, objective analysis on these steps is because we have unconsciously find ourselves in the same struggles our fathers fought. But they couldn't achieve it. And we have to sincerely ask ourselves, what and what did they do? What opportunities did they meet and they did not galvanize over it? What and what did they fail to do? Because I used to tell people, very, very important, I used to tell people, for those of us who care to know, the journey we are is a very delicate one. Very, very delicate in the sense that, it's a very complex, there are complex competitors. So there are certain things our fathers could not do. There are certain things our fathers also did that were also amazing. But let's build our premise on this. In 1960s or prior to 1960, before 1960, the people of the East were super rich. I mean before 1960. You cannot count 1, 2, 3, 4 wealthiest people in Nigeria before 1960, even before 1966. That the 5 will not be occupied. The chart will not be, the 5 positions will not be occupied by the people of the East. I'm telling you historical fact. Also, when you look at Nigerians' management, the management of public administrative system, the people of the East were also controlling the communication sector, the railway sector, certain areas. Now, do you know why the people of the East were controlling? They were controlling because the people of the East, listen and listen very well, we are not seeing the Hausa, the Fulani, the Yoruba man as their competitors. Rather, the people they saw as their competitors in terms of science and technology were the Europeans. So the Easterners, before 1960, believed that their knowledge was measurable to that of the Europeans and not that of, the subunits in Nigerian socio-political landscape. So those of them who are managing the rail lines were bringing an idea or ideas that were competitive to the Europeans. Those of them who were managing, public corporations and other public corporations and other sectors were building a system that either equates with the European system or is going to be ahead of European system. It was an amazing thing. But look at where we got all these things wrong. While we are, exhibiting our prowess, while our fathers were exhibiting their naturally endowment, their excellency in acumen, their super intelligent expose, our fathers were poor in terms of expanding. I'm talking about diplomatic expansion. Our fathers were very poor in terms of diplomatic expansion. They had the resources to win over 30 or 40% of global attention as at that time. They had the resources, not monetary value. I'm talking about intellectual resources to achieve all these things. But because they never find it worth investing on, because they felt that the system, they were in control, that there will be nothing like, the experience of 1966. They never. So they were more interested in competing with the Europeans to better the local environment, to replicate what was seen. In fact, they were trying to make it in a way that people should be discouraged to even travel to Europe. Nothing should be attractive about Europeans. That was the mindset of the time when the people of the East were controlling Nigeria. Nobody was interested to travel. Go and make a research. Rather, when you travel, money will be sent from here to you as an aid. So you are just an aid recipient. Traveling to Europe, makes you disadvantageous to those at home. That was exactly the system they built. I'm telling you historical fact. 1960 is not far-fetched from here. So nobody is cooking up anything. Do you now understand what happens? The Europeans now did, if you're a surveyor, you will know what we call geomappings, did a demographical mappings, did a sort of, did a demographical mappings, did a sort of ethnic profiling. Why I decided to go deep to issues of history is because I have the consciousness that my followers transcend, across the Biafran population. People from all walks of life, because of our area of interest, follow. So it is important we educate people, not with any prejudice, but to present undiluted historical fact. Because what you see today is a historical revisionism, people trying to lie, people trying to present falsehood. So what the Europeans now came to the realization is this, that if we don't destroy this light in Africa, I have said it severally in many of my programs, that there is what we call geographical mappings. For those of, I believe, a surveyor might be here. I'm talking about land surveyor, anybody that did geoinformatics, science. There's what we call mapping system. You circle a place and you start looking for a unique location, which is your core target. That was exactly what the Europeans did in Africa. They came to the realization that there is this light in West Africa, and if that light is not destroyed, if that light is not destabilized, if that light is not quenched, they will lose Africa. Africa will be destroyed. And they saw that light in the lives of an average Igbo man. And of course, when we talk about Igbo man, we are talking about the conscious Igbo and the unconscious. The unconscious Igbos are those who denied the identity because of civil war. So you should know what I'm saying. They were Igbos until 1967. So for over 2,000 years in antiquity, in ancient history, they were all Igbos. All of a sudden, they de-Igbolized themselves as a result of British and Fulani's advancement. And it's an act of cowardice. It doesn't show bravery, to say but the least. So what the Europeans now did was this. They now came up with this mindset and said, if we don't destroy this light, because you're British, if we don't destroy this light in Africa, what happened in Asia will be replicated in Africa. And most of you might be interested to ask me what actually happened in Asia. What you're seeing today in China, what you're seeing in South Korea, what you're seeing in Jakarta, what you're seeing in Malaysia, what you're seeing in Macau, all those places was as a result of the light that ignited in Japan. The technological spread, the spillover of technology, reformations, industrial revolution in, Asia, and by far Southeast Asia, was as a result of what happened in Japan. Japan saw industrialization. Japan saw industrial revolution and they could not hold it back. It slipped to other areas. And you can see what Asia is today. So they now came to this realization that if we don't destroy the Igbo race, I'm saying this so that our people understand the magnitude of the battle we have. Because when you are ignorant of the size of your war, you're automatically a loser. And that's exactly what we do as a people. That's why we lose in many cases. Because we first of all downplay disadvantageously the challenges before us. Downplaying can be healthy in certain ways, but when it is deceptively applied on oneself, it becomes a self-destruction. You can downplay, countries downplay, it's a titis, it's a war titis, but you don't downplay everything. Or should I say, you can make a public downplay, but at the level of planning and strategizing, you don't downplay. You face the quantity and the quality of your challenge for what it is, devoid of sentiment. You can downplay at the public space because you want to tone down tensions. You want to bring down anxieties. But at the level of strategic plannings, you don't do downplaying. You don't downplay. You size the challenge for what it is. You size it. In fact, instead of you to downplay at the level of planning, you oversize the challenge. You oversize it. It is healthier to oversize at strategic planning level than to undersize at that level. And that is, the problems most of us have made. So what, what the Europeans say, okay, we have to destroy these people. If we destroy the Igbo people, if we weaken them, we have weakened Africa, especially the sub-Saharan Africa. If we nip them, if we subjugate them, if we bring them to a certain height, definitely we have also controlled the speed, the movement of the sub-Saharan African man. This is what people do not know. And the project started. Yeah, they started a project. And I'm going to tell you some of the applications they did so that you understand. One of those things they did, one of the first target they did was to do what we call balkanization of Igbo unity. People tend to think that when somebody whose name is Mwike says he's not an Igbo, for instance, or when somebody whose name is Chidi says he's not an Igbo, somebody think it is the factor of today. That is the mistake we make. It's not a factor of today. What you're seeing in the life of Chidi, or what you're seeing in the life of Wike, or what you're seeing in the life of somebody whose name is Ajoko, saying he's not an Igbo, was as a result of the fate of the first trial of that conspiracy in 1956, if I'm not mistaken, 56, 57, known as Willings Commission. That was the first. I had a professor, he's late, his name is then in the University of Port Harcourt, I will remember his name. Okay, his name is Elechi Amade. That is a professor. I just want to tell you how powerful psychological operation works. But each time we try telling you people that it's a very is advanced biological weapon. People do not know. I had a professor, Elechi Amade. You take your time, Google about, Elechi Amade. He's a professor. Then in, I think, department, in Department of English. In Department of English. And he happens to be one of those people. When I was in school, I went to his house. I mean his native house, in a place known as Alon. For those of you who know that environment too well, you know Elechi Amade's house in Alon, just after Alon Junction. Left takes you to, left takes you to Umuagwa. Then the one that takes you to Lumuwoku, then you see Professor Elechi Amade's house. Then we are doing a course. The title of the course was the Nigerian Civil War. And he happens to be amongst those I had to interview on oral history. Oral history. Remember, he was a professor. I just want, why I decide to mention him for you to understand, when we start telling you how penetratable the deepness of psychological operation in the life of people, education does not save you from it. If you are not conscious of it, it has the capacity to penetrate you and make you more foolish. In fact, the more educated you are, the more, the more destructive psych operations penetrate you. It's a natural thing. So he was a professor, but a victim of MI6 operation. He was a victim of, MI6, British Intelligence Agency operation. So I met him and I said to him, Prof, in fact, I also appreciated the fact that he never had an English name. So he was more of a lover of native identity. So his name is Elechi. And you remember the same Elechi also have Elechi in Ebony. So unarguably, nobody can contest that Elechi is an Igbo name, So his name is Elechi. Amade is a common Igbo name. So I met him, I asked him, I said, Prof, you bear Elechi Amade. Please, can you tell me your Igbo history? He was so furious without question. And he tried all he could to give a connectivity between Elechi Amade, which is Igbo name, undiluted. In fact, it's one of the most raw Igbo names. He was trying to give a connectivity to Benin. So that was the first project the British government took against the Igbo nation. Balkanization. Let us make them, let us make some of them to be ashamed to associate with whom they are. They tried it in 1950s through the Willings Commission. They got some people. It seems that wasn't enough. They instigated the genocide of 1966 to 1970. And on the process of killing the Igbos, the British informed the Nigerian military government and said, when you get to some places, if these people deny their Igbo-ness, tell them you are sparing their life because they deny their Igbo-ness. There are certain things you might not be aware of, that some people survived. Some people were not killed in that civil war because they said they were not Igbos. Who taught Nigerian military government to apply that tactics? British intelligence agency. What tactics was that? Psychological oppression. So when you deny not being an Igbo, for instance, or when you are told that the only thing that will make you to leave is when you deny your identity, do you think in any circumstances you will not spend your remaining life on earth to prove that your decision for denying your identity was a right one? You just be trying to prove the error, justify the error. So that is what it is. That was the first operation they launched on us. Why we're telling you all these historical realities, so you to understand certain things you think are just by the way. When you see some people act the way they are acting, when you see some people fooling themselves the way they are fooling themselves, you have to understand the trace of it. History is so powerful because there are certain things you cannot delink. It has a very strong connectivities, very strong bond that you cannot do away with it. So that was, the first psychology, the first weapon the British launched against us. Now, the second weapon was, in fact, before that, before Willing's Commission of 1950s, they have launched one of the dangerous weapons in the north. It is called, I think that weapon was launched in 1910. It is called Land Ordinance Act. Go and check it. Land Ordinance Act. What was that operation all about? Why was Land Ordinance Act of 1910? What was it all about? Most of you do not know. The Igbo man was known to have conducted a lot of international trade, even before the Europeans came. The Igbo man, the ancient Igbo man, was running an international trade. You see, when people today in Igbo society, when you hear people like Arochukwu, apart from the religious dimension of the Aroma, one of those things Arochukwu people conducted or intensively did in Igbo history was they were really in charge of what we call long distance trade. The Igbo man was trading from here to Tanzania, to Niger. I'm telling you, even before the British came. That was why all those trade routes, those routes, because that time there was nothing like bicycle, there was nothing like, so they walked maybe for months to go and trade. It was purely international trade. That was why there are certain trade routes you see today. In southern Kaduna, if you go to southern Kaduna, travel to places heading towards Borno, trying to enter Chad, Niger, and others, you will see some names that sounds similar to Igbo. Like for instance, those places you will see some identities. People tend to look more like the Igbos than the Northerners. If you go places like Chibok region, there are certain names you see, you'll be wondering, they look like Igbo. They sounded like Igbo. Because while the Igbos were trading on those routes, there were trade routes at which they traveled. They influenced a lot of people in those routes. And Britain felt that the Igbos' influence have the ability to Igbolize the northern people, opening their eyes. There's every possibility that the Igbos are going to teach them African capitalism. Do you know what the British government did? They enacted, or should I say, they put up a law known as Land Ordinance Act 1910. Do you know what that Land Ordinance Act was? They came up with the idea that in northern region, telling colonial period, that in northern region, any Igbo man that came to north should have a particular place he should stay, so that he does not intermarry with the northerners. He does not integrate, he does not interact, and thereby exposing the northerners. And that place that every Igbo man who came to trade in the north will stay, they call it Sabongeri. For those of you who do not know how the idea of Sabongeri came, Sabongeri means a restricted area that the British created for Igbos who were visiting north for trade to remain. It's just like a camp. You don't cross here, so that the Igbos do not influence the northerners with their capitalist mindset, their passion for education, their passion for inquiries. That was how the concept of Sabongeri came to. It was a British initiative. Go and ask. Because British discovered that the trade routes the Igbos pass, those settlers or communities within those trade got influenced, got exposed, began to live like humans, began to have a lot of influences and affluences, began to be passionate for exposure, began to be passionate for inquiries. They said, no, we have to stop these people. Yes, they are going to bring Renaissance in Africa. And I told you, they enacted the Land Ordinance Act, initiated the Willings Commission. Then another tactics they came up was the 1966 genocide. But before the genocide, they did something funny in the north. The British went to north and told them that these people who are coming trading with you, that they are crusaders. Most of you do not know this. British told the northern emirs that the Igbos who were coming trading with you, they are crusaders. Why? Because British understood that the Igbos accept Christianity, and they felt that what they used Christianity to do was exactly what the Igbos were still going to use Christianity to do in North. What did the British or the Europeans did with Christianity? Christianity was an instrument of mind control, subjugation, mental control, mental, modifications. The same people who told us Christianity was the best thing went to the North and started telling them, if you give these people a chance, they are going to Christianize you. And of course, maybe they might be true. They might be false. But if you look at certain places the Igbos pass as a trade route, you see somehow those people are not Muslims. Those areas Igbos traded as a trade route, Igbos influenced them. So they told them that these people are coming to Christianize you. They are coming to Christianize you. That was why the 1966 war, majority of northern Muslims felt it was a jihad. Because Britain had earlier poisoned their minds that if you don't stop these people, they are bringing cross all over the north. And of course, people do not understand. It's a historical fact. There is no Yoruba Christian that have committed to evangelism what the Igbos have done. What they have quietly did. What the Yoruba Christians did was more of collecting of offering collections for self-satisfaction. What the Igbos did was wealth disbursement for evangelization, in quote, and they are still doing it today. Igbos did wealth disbursement. They bring out their wealth and say, go and spread the gospel. What the Yoruba Christians do is absorb. They take for their own care. And that's why Islam was not even controlled in Yoruba land. Because the Yoruba Christians were not there to evangelize to anybody. Christianity was seen as a reward for those who accept Christianity instead of Islam. That whatever they are getting there is their reward. After all, they're supposed to have been Muslims. So for them to have even accepted Christianity, you're paying them for that. That's the mindset. Now, to the Igbo man, he believes that his wealth is to evangelize. And of course, if Christian God blesses, perhaps that is the reason why he's blessing the Igbo nation. But that is, by the way, I don't mean to digress a lot. So, this is what the British. So they now instigated hatred, wide hatred against the Igbos. Now look at one of those things our fathers never did that we must correct in this dispensation. Why Britain was carrying out this psychological war against the Igbos, not because British hate the Igbo. I want you to understand, not that British hate the Igbo. It's because the British have identified a threat to her interest. Because some of us, we always say the British hate the Igbo man. No. You might be partially correct. But let's speak here as a student of political science. The Igbos are impediment to British exploitative interest in sub-Saharan Africa. In so doing, the British is fighting to eradicate an impediment to their interest. You now understand what I'm talking about. So, the British government identifies an Igbo man as an obstacle. So, one of the challenges our fathers did was this. Our fathers, despite their advantage, scattered all over the world, we are not interested to understand what a national interest is all about. National interest is different from individual interest. And this is the mistake so many of us are still doing today. If I fight to survive on individual landscape, no matter how I'm standing, while my community is in ruin, I'm vulnerable. It's a natural thing. In fact, in our aphorism, we do say Igwe Buike. So our fathers were not necessarily understanding the importance of fighting for national survival, the people, we surviving. And before they knew, that miscalculation, that loophole was maximized by our enemy, and they did a lot of hard works. So what British did, when they now see they have applied Land Ordinance Act, they have applied Willis Commission, it didn't work. Okay, let us instigate genocide. Let us instigate genocide. They instigated genocide. And what was the reason for that genocide? There was three reasons. One, to control our population. Most of you do not know that before 1966, these are all archived information. Before 1966, the highest populated ethnic group in Nigeria was the Igbo nation. Go and find out. Nobody's speculating anything. The most populated people in Nigeria were the Igbos. So the genocide of 1966, one was a demographical control. A demographical control, to control your population. Two was to strip us that percentage of control we have in the management of Nigerian public sector. Of course, it was functional as at then. And of course, three was to implant perpetually fear. To implant. I have told you the three reasons for that war. One was a demographical control, that is the population project against the people of the East. Two was to remove you from the management of Nigeria system, which was functioning, so that they will import destroyers to mess the system up and enable them penetrate. And the third was to infuse fear in you. And these are three things IPOB is strategically fixing in the lives of our people. These are three cardinal challenges that the movement is strongly facing it. So how did they do this? Now, let me not tell you, there's something, nature abhors vacuum. Nature abhors vacuum. These three things, which is depopulation, removal from strategic position, and thirdly, fear. What did they replace it with? And now we have come to the real gist of this program. I told us it's going to be lengthy, and I seek for apology. I apologize for the time you're going to burn. But we have a whole lot of history we are discussing. We want to empty some things here. You know, I know most of us this weekend, we might have engaged in one or two things, but even though you don't finish, you can still make out your time some subsequent times and go back. So these three things, let us see how they achieve it and what did they replace it with. Very, very important. The first project was project of depopulation. Yes, over 5 million Igbos were killed during the genocide. Yes, over 5 million Igbos were killed. We are talking about the three projects, the three essence of the genocide of 1966. You see, you know, when you ask an average Nigerian why the Nigerian went into Nigerian Biafra war, you know, ignorantly or mainstreamly, even they at the level of their president, they will tell you is to unify Nigeria. This is, you know, the laxity of mental understanding of what actually transpired. And some of them who have understood lately, like IBB and all the rest of them, will still try a way to justify their, you know, their mistakes. Oh, it was not Igbo coup, blah, 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 you know. Because people do not understand that when you keep, the longer you keep Nigeria, you are just serving a British interest. Nigeria can never be beneficial to an ordinary Nigerian. It can never. Because it is created, it is designed. You know, for those of us, you know, for those of you who are into building tech, the purpose, the end point of a building lies on the design. The utility, the utilization of a building lies on the design. If a building at the design level is designed to be 3-bedroom flat, at the point of usage, utility, it cannot serve you what 5-bedroom flat can serve you, except you're stupid. Because the design reflects it in reality, and what is in reality controls the utility. Nigeria was designed, built to serve British interests, nothing more, nothing less. So when you say you are P2B, you are Tiku, you are Tinubu, I will better the life of Nigeria, I will better the life of you are just speaking out of ignorance. You are outrightly speaking out of ignorance. In fact, your ignorance is so pandemic because you are risking the lives of millions of people. It's just like a building that had been designed for 3-bedroom flat, built on that, strictly built on that design. All of a sudden, you are bringing up to 20 people to live there. Of course, it's a health disaster you're going to face. Facility destruction you're going to face. That is what it is. So let us talk about these 3 purposes at which the Civil War was fought: depopulation, strategic removal, and what have you, the fear. Now let's look at population, depopulation. So they knew that Igbos were the most populated as at the time we are talking about. And what they failed to do was to depopulate by talking Nigerians into fighting their saviors. Historical records have shown us that when the Igbos were in the affair of this country, nobody was crazy about traveling. Nigerian passport was one of the best. Nigeria currency was the best. Nigeria GDP was flourishing. Per capita income was amazing, competing with those of them. So invariably, it's not wrong to say the Igbos were saviors of the Nigerian state. But the British instigated them, the gullible and ignorant Nigerians, to destroy their saviors. Not just destroy them, to depopulate them. And of course, they went into that self-destruction, thinking they were doing an Igbo man. And they made the mistakes of their lives. Did they succeed in depopulation? No, they can't. Because something happened after the Civil War, which most of you are careless about. That is why it is so difficult for you to say Igbo population is low. Because there was something that happened. Our people did it unconsciously, as the spirit propelled them to do. After the Civil War, I'm going to talk about my own clan. And I know what I want to discuss, because I've listened to so many people from other Igbo clans. After the Civil War, our women, our men became so energetic and started producing dozens. Yes, like in my own clan, in my own Mbise clan, after the Civil War, our people have what they call Ibu Ewu Uku. Any Mbise person on this platform will attest to it. There's what we call Ibu Ewu Uku, and it's also applicable to other Igbo areas. Igbo women began to compete to born 12. When you born 12, your husband will kill goat for you. After the Civil War. Why those who were cajoled, who were instigated to depopulate the Igbos, why they relaxed? They post-Nigerian Biafran War Igbo society began to go crazy in reproducing what they lost. For instance, like I told you, Mazi Chika is here. He's from my own clan. He can attest to it. Began to make sure that no woman goes below 8, below 6. And they were able, within an interval of 15-20 years, they were able to cover up. they were able to cover up. Because if you, like my own mother had 9. Despite it was more of contemporary times, he had 9. And that agenda of the population, when the British government began to see that these people seem to have a secret, that these people seem to have a secret bet operation, when they saw that it seems this will, during Abacha time, they began to carry campaign of population control, that people should not born more than how they cannot control. That was an agenda. They began to, try to look a way to work on the minds of the Igbo against the bet policy that was skyrocketing. They did it in IBB time, trying to carry that campaign, telling our people not to. They were targeting our people, telling them not to bomb more than 3, trying to come up with the idea of vaccine. And of course, our people did not accept it. And that is what it is. So that agenda of the population, till today, we are the highest population in Nigeria. Go and verify. Forget the official nonsense they publish. There is no state. When you count the indigenous population, the next population you get is the Igbo population. There is absolutely no state in Nigeria. When I asked, I said, go and find out. There is no state that after counting the indigenous number, the next number you see is the Igbo population. That is what it is. So, because we have so many things to say, let us see if we can fast forward so that we don't bore. So, the agenda of the population never worked. Until today, they are not happy. The next agenda was the agenda of removing of Ndi Igbo from a strategic position. When they did that, when the Igbos were removed from strategic position, what next did they do? They replaced it with the Fulanis. They replaced it with the Fulanis. But before then, they had run a very secret operation of importing the Fulanis from Guinea-Bissau. They have already run an agenda of getting the Fulanis from Guinea-Bissau down to Nigeria. So, when they removed the Igbos from a strategic position after the Civil War, do you know what happened? They replaced it with the Fulanis. They did what French. They came and borrowed from French. Listen and listen very carefully. The French people realized in Sahel that the only people that can destroy a society for them, make their society vulnerable for them, in anywhere in the Francophonian nation, was the Fulanis. And what did the French people do? They made sure that the Fulanis, despite their low population, should be placed in governance of these countries in Sahel. So British went there, borrowed that idea from the French and applied it in Nigeria. Because they knew that the Fulani or the Fube have nothing, absolutely nothing to lose when it comes to, wrecking down anywhere for them. So, like the French, let me show you what the French did. Now, if you watch the sticker, I see Guinea-Bissau. From Guinea-Bissau, which you're seeing there, the French scattered the Fulanis. In Burkina Faso, in Senegal, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in Côte d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in Togo, in Benin, Mali, Chad, Niger. They scattered them. That's what French did. And in all these countries I mentioned, there's nowhere, apart from Guinea-Bissau, there's nowhere you will tell me that the Fulanis have major population. There is absolutely no place. There is absolutely... Now, look at sorry, let me get something. Okay, because it's important okay, look at Mali. Look at Mali. Look at Mali. You say Mali has a diverse population with the Bambara. In Mali, the most populated people were the Bambara. Being the largest, in fact, the most populated language they speak in Mali is Bambara language, which has a 33.3%. Then another group is the Fulani. In Mali. But the French people, just the way what the British did in Nigeria, what they borrowed from French people and applied in Nigeria, the French people prefer to see the Fulanis controlled Mali. Why? Because a Fulani man averagely has nothing to lose. He settles in a place today. If that place burns, he relocates. So in Mali, the French government operated a system. Mali has one of the highest deposits of lithium, gold, even uranium. But do you know what? The Malians do not see all these things. When the Fulanis were in control in Mali, they don't see. Shimpa, they don't see. Because the Fulani man have no business building skyscraper, developing a city. He doesn't care. That is the least they can talk about. This is the least they can talk about. So the French people love them for being more interested in the bush than city development. And in Mali, the French made sure that they have more control until the last military, leader took over. Also, for those of you who do not know, You know, if you also look at Burkina Faso, the highest population in Burkina Faso was Bobo people. After Bobo people, you now talk about the Fula, which is the Fulani sub-tribe in Burkina Faso. But the French also did everything to strategically position the Fula people in Burkina, even when the Bobo people are the most populated people in Burkina Faso. Am I going to talk about Niger? Let me also see if I can show you what Niger looks like. Let me show you what Niger looks like. You know, so that you... Let me see if I can get... In fact, in Niger, the most populated people are the Hausa people. The most populated people in Niger Republic are the Hausas. But who we are also controlling, the French people handed it over to the Fulanis to run. And what was Niger like? A poorest country. Burkina Faso before now, a poorest country. Mali, a poorest country. So British went to those places and saw how Fulanis helped the French people. For instance, Niger has uranium, yet they don't have electricity. Isn't that mind-blowing? Niger, under Fulani control, has uranium, but cannot boast of electricity. Burkina Faso was said to be the poorest. Today, Burkina Faso, that is being controlled by non-Fulani, is not owing any lending institution in the world. They have cleared their debt to Bretton Woods institution. What is happening in Mali? Mali today is the first African country to build lithium refining plant. And French, the Western world, are not happy with this development. Just the way British was not happy with the way the Igbos were running Nigeria before 1966. The British were, that's why even till today, they wish that the Fulanis should be occupied. See what Fulani man did. See what Buhari did 8 years. You could see 8 years was wrecked down. He built in fact, what he destroyed, even next 100 years can never be fixed. So what Britain did was they went to this area. They saw what happened. They said, oh, we have a good people who have been helping France to destroy everything, impoverish the land, make the land vulnerable. Let us also get them contracted in Nigeria. They started fixing them, working in their mines. And of course, the decades of Fulani management of Nigeria, you know what it looks like. And one thing is this, just the way in these countries we earlier mentioned, when you remove power from them, they make those places ungovernable. British, France understand how these guys work because they have their own understanding of Islam is this. If you are in power and you see 60 billion and you steal it, full an interpretation of that is that is the time God have prepared a table for you. So stealing is not a crime. looting is not a crime. It's you that shout looting. They don't see it as anything. That's why there is no Fulani government that can try another Fulani man of looting. Because their understanding of Islam is this, that thing you steal that while in power, that it is God that provided it for you. It is your own time to eat. Maybe it's getting clearer for you now. So that is what it is. So Britain now imported them into the administrative circle to manage Nigeria. And of course they helped them. That is why in Sahel region, people there is watching them with a very close monitoring. You see, immediately when you remove power from them, the next time you see them, they enter bush and start picking rifles, shooting, killing. And the Western countries is okay. In fact, what is happening in Mali is that France is asking them, the Alawite group, France is pushing for the world to divide Mali into two and give the Fulanese a country to run. Because France understand that if they are given a place to run, it's just an extended French colony. And that's what French is pushing in Mali. In Burkina Faso, they are also using them to commit heinous acts. What about Niger? In fact, the Nigerian leader called them a few days ago and told them that either they should understand that Niger has no room for jihad. He warned them outrightly. And of course, Nigeria, where Britain have empowered them, you can see what they are doing. Pillaging everywhere, destroying everywhere. Tell me which land that Fulani has not fought. So Britain removed the Igbos on the way, replaced them with the Fulanis in order to make sure that no any kind of competition could come from this part of the world. Yes. And do you know what the Igbos did? The Igbos quietly left the government and focused on business. Most of you do not understand. The Igbo man was more of an industrialist than a trader. One day we'll make our time to tell you this, because most of you do not understand. The Igbo man is not a trading proponent. He's not a trader the way you see them today. Before 1966, Igbos were not in trading business the way they are today. Something happened. The Igbos were producers, industrialists. These are two different things. They produce. People now buy from them for trading. That was how they built Ada Palm in Ohajebema. That was how they built ceramic plant. That was how they, built paint industries, Akaraka paint industries. About this, Enugu this and that. Igbos were not traders. Igbos were more of industrialists. They were more of industry building business. And you know what happens? If these people are producing what was brought for them from overseas, no need of buying overseas. The Igbos were producing almost everything the Nigerians needed. That was how they built Aba. That was how they built Onitsha. So they were producing a lot. The West African people were using. So when the Europeans say, no, these people are competing, we call this political economy. When the Europeans find out that what's supposed to be their market, that Igbos are occupying it. Let me tell you something. Before this time, nobody goes to Italy to... I have a friend of mine, he deals on wares. He goes to Italy, UK and buy. Nobody buys all those things. Go and verify. People come from West Africa, come to Aba, load shoes, load clothes, load other produced equipments to other West Africans. So the Igbos were creating jobs, discouraging people from traveling. The Igbos were producing, helping Naira not to be under pressure of forest market. You get what I'm saying? These are things the Igbos were doing. And when British replaced the Igbos with the Fulanis, guess what? The Fulanis started implementing policies that are destructive to industries. Most of you never knew what I want to tell you. Nigeria electricity line system, grid, national grid you're seeing, was designed by an Igbo man, pushing areas that should be a cluster, industrial cluster, percentage of energy that should be channeled. There's so much designed Nigeria. There's so much arranged Nigeria. I'm talking the Igbos in a way that no black man will see reason from Nigeria to travel to say he's seeking for a greener pasture. So Britain felt that these guys, if they go unchecked, a lot of things, they will lose a lot. What they did was they brought the Fulanis, and the Fulanis, through their policy, destroyed everything. That was, at that point, the Igbo man left industries, left industrialization project of his, and goes into trading. Because most of you do not know, when a Yoruba man start telling you, are they not traders? Tell them. We started trading of recent. The Igbo man passion for trading was a child of necessity. There's nothing he could do. Nothing he could do. Because the energy to power the industry is not working. He has to now switch to trading. And what is trading? He goes overseas, he goes to China, where they have energy to produce, pay them, bring it here. If you go to Owerri, for instance, one thing Owerri is known for is hotel. Ask those people who are into hotel business in Owerri. It's not their passionate dream. You know, most of us, there are some things most of us write. I will sit down and laugh. I say because, well, we talk because of our level of knowledge. People build hotel in Owerri, it's not because that is... Don't tell me that those who are building hotels in Owerri would not love to have where you produce toothpick. But look at the secret. Look at the reason people choose to go to hotel than other areas in Owerri. It's simple. In Owerri, you don't have a 24-hour light. And in the course of building this hotel, sometimes you access bank loans to fund the project. And you know, moratorium period, what we call moratorium period, is a period of grace the bank gives you before you start servicing those loans. Maybe 6 months. And 6 months you need to, you need to do everything to start selling and start servicing the loan. And energy, electricity, to generate electricity to run these factories. Diesel, do you know how much you're going to burn on diesel? When you check it, and you know the period your products start entering market, start having attention, customers' attention, 2 years, you are still trying to consolidate. They have to go to hotels so that day they open it, people will come in to lodge. Hotel business in Owerri is a child of necessity. It's not because that is what those guys like to build over there. It's because reality on ground shows that is the only thing they can do. Most of you do not know. Owerri, for instance, has the highest water in Africa. Nobody have told you this, and I'm telling you that for free. That's why Coca-Cola produces water. The ever water you take is produced in Owerri. Do you know how much Coca-Cola makes in taking the water on Owerri land, exporting it? That is it. Do you know how much Coca-Cola takes from Owerri water? Because Owerri has the best water all over the world. Coca-Cola is a joint venture between Israel and the U.S. Do you not tell me that these people will be happy to have 24 hours and people start researching on all these things? So when we tell our people that the journey we are is not, you're not fighting with local actors because they don't have what it takes. It's a very, you see, it's a very complex situation. So that is one for strategic replace. So they remove the Igbos. Welcome, sir. So they remove the Igbos strategically, just they did in other West Africa, and replace it with the Fulanis to help them and destroy. You're seeing Burkina Faso surrendering today because the non-Fulanis have taken over. You're seeing what is going on in Mali because the non-Fulanis have taken over. You're seeing Niger gradually coming back because Hausa man is in charge. You can now understand what we're talking about. You can understand what we're talking about. So, this is what we're talking about. So when they remove, now some people thought, you see, when I tell people you are not intelligent, they think we are abusing them. Some persons might be watching from Malaysia. Malaysia should be 6 hours ahead of us. No, sorry, 9 or 8 hours ahead of us. Ask people in Malaysia. Let me tell you something that happened in Malaysia people do not know. Malaysia, I have said this some time ago. Malaysia is made up of various ethnic nationalities. You have the Malays, you have the Chinese, you also have the other black people, I will remember. But do you know what? The Malay people are not industrialists. They don't have a daring spirit like the Chinese. So they step aside and allow the Chinese to run Malaysia. The leaders in Malaysia always come from Chinese side. I mean, Chinese as in Chinese who are indigenous Malays, who are indigenous Malaysians. Anybody who is watching from Malaysia can attest to that. And because the Chinese are super excellent in daring development, everybody is enjoying it. You say, Orlando, want to go to Malaysia. So in the case of Nigeria, when the British people conspicuously removed the Igbo man, others were making noise. Igbos we will never allow Igbos to govern. You are killing yourself. You are destroying yourself. The unemployment hits you. So when you say you are applauding British conspiracy, British is strategically removing Igbo man out of the way, not because British hate an Igbo man. I want you to understand something. Not because the British hate an Igbo man. It's because the British hate everybody that occupy that geographical reality. Not because they hate the Igbo man. They want Igbo man who is a savior, who has a daring spirit to get out of the way, so that everybody in that created contraption will suffer. Including Yoruba man, including Ijaw man, including Hausa man, even including the Fulani man himself. No special treatment. So they kill your saviors. They remove your saviors. They frustrate your saviors because they will hate you, not your saviors. I want people to understand this. I want people to understand this. Because when we tell people certain things, they misconstrue it. The British man knows it. That any day, the bigots, the foolish bigots, allow these people to be in charge, everybody will smile home. So let us always tell them to hate their saviors. That is what it is. Now, let me say this. Thank you, Annabelle. Before we go to the last one, which is fear, I have told you three things the Civil War tried to achieve: depopulation, strategic removal, and the last one is fear. You see, after the war, they wanted an average woman to believe that he's nobody, to live with fear. And you know, whenever a people are subjugated into fear, they are already defeated. You see, the war ended and they wanted us to live a life of fear. We shouldn't talk anything about our interest. We shouldn't dare anything, because they know, you know, the Igbo people challenged them, you know. Even when Ojukwu was studying, he questioned his English teacher. So they are uncomfortable with that, you know, this racist agenda, supremacy, you know, supremacy mindset. It doesn't work where an Igbo man is. That's why when Igbo man enters to another man's land, he wants to have affair with their women. No other tribe in Africa does that easily. Go and ask. In fact, it is on record that one of the reasons why the British was angry with the Igbos was during the Burma War. The Burma was old India during the Second World War. The Igbo African frontier soldiers, the Igbo soldiers they took to India, to Burma, to go and fight for British. The Igbos got there and started befriending British ladies. This is a colonial time when the British were seen as a semi-god by other Africans. Other Africans were seeing them as a semi-god. The Igbo man went there at Burma. The Igbo men who were recruited in Nigeria under West African Volunteer Force. The Igbo people went to Burma and started befriending British women. Start marrying them. start having an affair. And the British government was mad. So what kind of people are these? Other Africans see their women as God. These ones, they came, they defied everything. And of course, they felt that these bold people need to be subjugated. They felt these people need to be subjugated. If not, the boldness they have, if they transmit it to other Africans, trouble will be. And of course, that is the same thing that is happening. You see, everybody is talking in Nigeria. Everybody is challenging the status quo. Everybody is speaking out because the Igbo man have started speaking out. Formerly, everybody is just lying low. But people are beginning to talk. People are beginning to question authority. People are beginning to ask the ideal question. People are beginning to even say, no, is the union worth dying for? Because Igbo man is speaking. Formerly, everybody was just lying low. So, if you understand where this thing, so the British felt through the Civil War, we have to infuse fear on these people so that they will be jittering and all this and all that. But the truth remains, should I say, that project never succeeded. It never succeeded, to be frank with you, because after the Civil War, I'm sorry to say what I want to say, but that is just what it is. You know, the Civil War, one of those things British wanted to make us achieve, was, wanted to implant in us was fear, instrument of fear, so that we should be afraid, because they saw what we did, what our fathers did in Burma, and some of them lost their women, their girlfriends. Some military British soldiers lost their girlfriends to Igbo volunteers. And at the time, British government felt it's not worth bringing the Igbo volunteers there, so no need of bringing them over there. They stopped bringing Igbo volunteers to Burma to fight because of number of British soldiers losing their girlfriend. So they felt no, and they saw Ojukwu also challenge what was not right. So they felt, let us, through this war, we're going to make them to lie low so that they can't talk. So people do not understand when you see this British not coming to talk about Nnamdi Kanu's case, is his boldness. And it has also been proven that our DNA, we don't tolerate intimidation. It's not, we don't learn it. We are born to that, We naturally stand tall in every situation. People always say Igbos are arrogant. It's not arrogancy. It's not arrogancy. The very day you're born in Igbo society, you're being programmed to think of survival possibility. That is the indoctrination, positive one anyway. That is what Igbo society exposes one to. So you grew up as a kind of independent thinker. So British felt that through the Civil War, they were going to curtail that. But after the Civil Wars, things happened. After the Civil War, the Igbos, like the depopulation agenda, the Igbos also helped themselves in certain ways, which most of you never knew. One of those things we are headed for today is because some people believe And that is how it's supposed to be, as a matter of fact. Some people believe that if you have passed through the difficulties of civil war, you should not be quick in recovery to stand tall. That is the mentality of some people. They believe that we recovered so quick. We recovered so quick. We recover. That is what they believe. And they do not also understand the possibility of that quick recovery. Let me tell you something. The war ended in 1970. In 1976, listen very carefully, Igbos have started clubbing, partying, 5 years after the Civil War. The war, this is a very devastating war. The world fought the Igbo society. The defunct USSR was there, America was there, Britain was there, the Egyptians were there, the Sahelians were there, fighting a very little enclave. So the war ended in 1960. In 1967, the Igbos have started partying. They have started clubbing. How do I know? It's simple. There is a music sung by Oriental brothers, Ibe Jimako. For those of you who have passion with Igbo high life music, it's sung this way. Ibe Jimako wo onye mambo jiruru ya o. That music was recorded in 1967. Sorry, in 1976 and played in 1977. And they have started partying already. Just within 4 or 5 years. 1970, the war ended. In 1976, Igbo society have recovered to a point that people began to ask, is in all these places the world took war to? So the fear they wanted to infuse in us never worked. From 1970 to 1980s, they have started controlling the minds of others through through their movie script. Most of you do not know. Those of them who are intellectual began to write the storylines of the heroism of an Igbo man. Chinua Achebe and all the rest of them. Pete Doche and all the rest of them. They began to write some of the things they acted. I would ezioku. I would hear the obtainable. Ebidonere eme ihe onyonyo. Ebe ga-ahụ Igbo man o nwere aja ego na-agba moto. Ihe awụrụ eziokwu. Mana ihe ahụ ihe meziri ndị a na-ajụzi. Ọwụra ndị a ka Igbo, these people we dealt with. So through all those literatures, through these geons of literatures, and only push stories. Some of these stories, some of ihe onyonyo awụrụ ya na-ahụ nọ n'ala. What then happened? They pushed these stories. Those who could not even visit Igbo land began to think that something extraordinary was happening there. these things were amazing things that reshaped a lot of things. And the plan of the British to infuse fear in us never worked. Igbo man began to walk in heroic display. Began to stand tall until what we have today. Why did we take time to go through this lengthy analysis and this? Because we must understand the journey before us. We must understand that. And for those of us who are still lagging behind in terms of being conscious of whom they are, the truth remains, it is the right time we have to engage beyond our own environment. We need that now. And thank God for this amazing generation of ours. Thank God for those of them who are doing Igbo Unite program. Thank God for those of us who are, unearthing Igbo histories. And above all, thank God for IPOB leadership that has taken it as a responsibility to engage beyond the Nigerian space for us. Recently, most of you did not see the ongoing, what should I say? Most of us did not see there is ongoing program that the leadership is extensively carrying out in Sahel. For those of you who watch, because that program, these are the things we need. We need to speak to those people in a language they will understand. That we are not troublemakers. We are not evil. You guys were used wrongly against people who are fighting for self-determination. People do not know. So, if you understand this, it will help. So, for those of you who were cajoled, who were fooled by the boy in Finland, well, it's sad you were a victim of that. But the truth remains, undeniable truth remains, he was more of an entertainer and a distraction. Let me tell us, for those of you who care to know, we need engagements, diplomatic engagements. And that is what the leadership is amazingly doing. There was in Sahel, in no distance from now we'll be speaking. And we must give them that accolade. So we must be strong, we must be bold, and we must above all understand that this journey we definitely see a successful end. Yes, that is what it is. I also want to seize this opportunity to thank those of us in Italy for the wonderful program they held, I think, for some days now, which ended yesterday. It was really, really amazing. You guys really made us proud. And of course, for leadership, I also want to thank you people for the awareness campaign in Sahel. Is what also appreciating our great men, the members of the ESN, the genuine fighters. I want to also appreciate you people. And above all, I want to also thank the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Mazi, for his perseverance. For his perseverance, Mazi we appreciate every single thing. Your endurance, for the sake of your people. And of course, you that, gave me your time. How many hours now? Okay, 2 hours, exactly 2 hours now. I really want to appreciate you because your time is so precious, And I want to say from here, good evening and have the best of the new week.